Alright then, do you like being reminded of how old you are? No? Well, too bad, because today we're looking at an older FNaF fan game called Fredbear's Fright. I mean, now that I look at it, the game isn't that old, and it came out in 2017, so wait, 2017?! Okay, that's pretty old. Anyway, I decided to take a peek at this game as I was reminded of when watching Dorko's most recent video at the time of writing this, of him playing what's essentially FNaF 3 in an alternate universe. Which is also what this game basically is. Fun fact, Fredbear's Fright was, I think, the first FNaF fan game I discovered and promptly ended up getting really into, thanks to 8-Bit Ryan's playthroughs of it. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this series on the game, man. Good times. Oh yeah, and it was spooky season like a couple days ago, so why not? Fredbear's Fright was created by Garrett McKay, the same guy behind some very popular FNaF fan games you may have heard of, being Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot and A Bite at Freddy's. I believe his first title was Fredbear and Friends Out of the Machine, which released a little bit before this one and isn't actually canon to the other 3 games he's created, such as the one I'm looking at today, so even if I'm not exactly sure how this title fits into the overarching plot of the Garrett McKay universe, that doesn't matter just yet, so let's begin, shall we? The first piece of media that was put out for Fredbear's Fright is this specific teaser of a strange looking mouse animatronic holding a box with the word Fredbear's something on it, while the word Scrap sits in the corner. The animatronic itself looks like a fusion of Chuck E. Cheese and one of the FNaF 1 animatronics. For some reason it makes me think of Bonnie the most. I'm not exactly sure why, it could be the lack of eyebrows. But yeah, based on the FNaF 1 aesthetic and the text in the corner, you're supposed to deduce this thing is most likely a Scrap mascot from the FNaF 1 location. You're supposed to deduce that this thing is most likely a Scrap mascot from the FNaF 1 location. And if you brighten the image and decrease the contrast, what the hell is that thing? The second teaser that was dropped was this, an old laptop being the focus of the scene, reminiscent of the FNaF 1 and 2 camera tablets. A pair of eyes is visible to the left as at the top of the screen you can read, "Who am I?" Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to really get from this teaser besides the guy you play as has amnesia? Maybe? Besides that, brightening the image doesn't do anything this time around, which is lame. Next up is Fredbear's head with the game title below it, used as a way to say the models in the game would be updated. Does this even really count as a teaser? Then there's a hand reaching out to grab a landline phone, perhaps implying one of the animatronics is gonna hack the phone system. And once again, we're back to brightening the image. This time text appears on the screen saying SCRA something something ED? I'd assume it says scrapped. Really hammering that home then, huh, Garrett? Next up, there's an image of Freddy and Bonnie from FNaF 1 peering out of a doorway with text saying "Don't move," telling us this game is going to be linked to FNaF 1 in some way. You can also see 2 eyes in the background between the 2 animatronics, but if you brighten the image you sadly can't get a better look at them. And finally there's the box from FNaF 4 telling us to find the keys, and a very familiar sight. Interesting. Moving on from teasers, there's this little video displaying early game footage, which I have to say, I don't really know why they didn't include- Oh, go f*** yourself. The final thing we have to talk about that isn't the game is the trailer. The beginning bit gives me FNaF 2 vibes and the camera panning, while also reminding me of FNaF 3 because of the similar color palette. And after a very well done walk cycle, why am I here? Well, I have a game to review, duh. Then we're given shots of a very dismantled looking Fredbear. Thank you! Alongside these sister location-esque puppet guys who haven't been teased in anything prior to this trailer, which is interesting. Why do I keep coming back? Well, I have a goddamn game to review! And then there's the final shot of the trailer of the guy who we were first shown, the mouse, hung up on what looks to be supports, before he turns to the camera and... Oh hey, that's nice, the mouse! Now you would expect this game to take you straight to the menu, but no, it actually opens in the FNaF 1 office as the guy you're seeing from the eyes falls asleep. I could talk about what this means in the overarching plot, but I'm not a lore guy and I don't feel like it yet. The title screen though is simple but effective, not displaying any animatronics in immediate view but rather showing you 3 monitors, only the first one active when you first boot up the game. Upon further inspection however, you can spot 2 animatronics visible in the peripherals of the menu screen, but I genuinely can't tell who they are, so I like this menu a lot, straying away from the usual formula of having one of the main gang up in center and instead focusing on the lighting and general vibe for the experience you're about to get into. Not even having the usual music you'd expect in a game like this, just eerie ambience. There's also the tips menu visible in the game's options, as apparently the phone calls in the game are a bit too vague for some people. Awfully familiar, huh? Once we click new game, and after this little loading screen, we're brought into an awfully familiar office space on one side, having a light and door system that we all know and love, while the other side has been renovated with a sealable vented keypad. Eventually the phone rings as the phone guy gives us the basic rundown on things. Apparently, the animatronic's supposed to be wired up and not move around. You wanna just fucking lie, I guess. And that this place is actually the original Freddy's from FNaF 1. It's just that Fazbear Entertainment ended up selling it to Fright Inc. So, yeah. Anyway, on the first night, the only dudes active are Scrap Malzicki and Dismantled Spring Bonnie. Malzicki starts in Camo 7 and eventually makes it to the left door, making a squeaking noise when he leaves, but his AI was too low for him to actually make it to my door on night 1, so... And Spring Bonnie starts on Camo with Fredbear and making their way to 4B through the attic to get into your vent, with 2 thumbs indicating them climbing into the vent and 1 indicating they left. Oh yeah, and so I don't have to mention it later, 3 thumbs means 2 characters swap places in the vent. As you can probably tell, this game's pulling a Five Nights at Freddy's 4 where audio cues are very important, which I like a lot. It helps the spooks in tension. Oh, and when Spring Bonnie left the vent, they never went back to the stage, nor could I find them on any of the cameras. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but it really freaked me out. Anyway, once the night— oh hey, this game's pulling a FNaF 3, they have it in between night minigames. The first minigame is of Freddy and friends singing on stage to some children, before the curtain is drawn and Purple Guy comes out and ends Show 01 prematurely. Then there's night 2, which throws Prototype, Dismantled Fredbear and the hand puppets into the mix. Prototype has essentially the same mechanic as Foxy in FNaF 1, starting in the entrance and progressing through multiple stages. And once he's left the camera completely, he'll rush straight to your office, in which you need to shut your door and wait for him to go back to his original position. I don't think looking at him in the cabs impacts how fast he moves though, which is lame, but he's still very cool. I don't understand why he likes that mask so much though. Dismantled Fredbear will start in Cam 1A, slowly progressing towards your office and eventually entering through a maintenance hatch behind you. Why the other animatronics don't use this maintenance hatch is beyond me, but anyway, he'll stand directly in front of you, menacingly. And you'll need to activate the sprinkler at the top of your office to make him leave, but if you forget to turn it off, you'll run out of water. Very unique mechanic. The fact Fredbear is the only animatronic to enter your office and not kill you instantly, and how his mechanic plays on him being a robot is very neat. Also, the very idea of one of the animatronics just casually entering your office and looming over you like that is absolutely terrifying, and it is so cool. But throughout the entire game, Fredbear hardly moved an inch, and I only ever encountered him once in all 4 of the canon nights. I'm not sure if that's a result of the movements being randomized, him having low AI even on night 4, or if I'm just unlucky, but it's really lame that he's so inactive and it really sucks. Moving on from Fredbear though, the hand puppets are vent crawlers like Bonnie is, so yeah. I like these renders of them both staring into the camera. I think they look neat and spooky. There's really not much else for me to say about them other than I like Freddy's jump scare. He's a wobbly boy. This night's minigame is of Foxy dancing and performing to a child as what looks to be masks sit on the table. Oh, and also a cake, I guess, before Purple Guy goes up behind Foxy and— William, think of the children! Night 3 introduces Scrap Fredbear, who'll call you every once in a while, giving you a code to reset himself, as for whatever reason, he doesn't actually want to kill you. But if you input the code wrong, he'll kill you. I'm getting mixed signals here, man. Do you want to kill me or not? I really like this mechanic. I don't know why, it just sticks with me for some reason. And about night 3, it was actually the first night I actually died on a couple times. But I never felt like any of my deaths were unfair, but rather my deaths were from a genuine mistake that I made, whether it be inputting the wrong number when Scrapped Fredbear calls me, or forgetting to check Prototype when he bolts to my door, which is very nice. This night's minigame you play as Fredbear giving cake to children. Now a really interesting point I saw brought up by 8-Bit Ryan in his playthrough is that the order of the children is like an evolution, starting off as a normal child, then is Freddy, then Fredbear. Not sure where it plays into the story, but it's certainly a funny detail. Anyway, once the cakes have been delivered, William Afton pulls Fred out of the room as it says Show 03 is now over. The second to last minigame. The final normal canon night is night 4, which starts off normal-ish, with the phone guy explaining that the prototype animatronic has done something horrible and that he's had a bad night. Ending it off with some exquisite voice acting and a growl, presumably from Prototype. Things go as you'd expect them to go until 1 AM, in which Yeah, I already had one of those, buddy. This new animatronic, referred to only as Fright, has killed every other enemy in the game and your employer, putting parts of them all into their body, but we are the only thing left in the building for Fright to kill. Let me just say, this night is f***ing terrifying. So much so that on my second attempt for the night, I straight up refused to open the vent until like 3 or 4 AM, and by the time I realised my mistake, I ran out of power. The execution for this night is so freaking good, as this final night between you and Fright, trying your best to survive, but it's all for naught.
Hey, wow, day 4. I knew you could do it. Hey, listen, I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow. It's been a bad night here for me. I'm kind of glad that I recorded my messages for you when I did. Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm going to try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there. You know. Oh no.
Oh, so that's how the beginning cutscene links to this. The phone guy fell asleep on night 4 and woke up when the power went out before being caught. And the final minigame we get is Purple Guy pressing a button as we see what is supposed to be the nightmare animatronics emerging from behind a curtain, walking into what looks to be the FNaF 4 house, a clickable key next to the box. Now the tests begin. And that's all for the main nights. The only big criticism I have for the general gameplay loop is that the camera system suffers from FNAF 2 syndrome. The majority of them aren't really useful to you because most of the animatronics just use the attic above the building as a means to get from point A to point B. And that really sucks because a lot of the rooms in this game have some absolutely killer renders and there's literally no point in checking them unless you need to kill time. The final night is actually on a separate monitor which has now been unlocked alongside the extras. Night 5. The general gist of Night 5 is the FNAF 1 animatronics called Phone Guy and stuffed him in what seems to be a springlock suit. And what you need to do is keep the suit wound up, not moving when the animatronics enter the room, and shutting your eyes to keep Golden Freddy away. Surviving 2 AM to 6 AM rather than the usual 12 to 6. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this night was easy as hell. I didn't really feel afraid at all, and the suit didn't even get a chance to wind down that much the whole night. I think if maybe the AI was increased during the night, it'd help a lot, alongside maybe introducing a new Fred. Maybe having Bonnie in the backstage doing something, while Freddy and Chica are the ones checking the door. Oh, and by the way, I couldn't find a spot to slot this into the script, so I'll just dump it here, I guess. If you click on this drawing of the puppet in Cam 6, you can access a minigame, the child in the back room with what looks to be Scrap Malzicki slumped over, as you play as a Freddy animatronic who walks in, and thus the minigame ends, presumably portraying the child who possesses Malzicki's demise. There's also a key hanging from the ceiling which you can click on, like the key in the Night 4 minigame. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Then for the extras menu, it's about what you'd expect. The first ever dismantled Fredbear model is a bit, it's a bit yikes, I gotta say. There's also the original office, which is also, it's also a bit yikes. And this specific teaser that was scrapped from the game really sticks out to me. It makes me think if this game was going to have a completely different plot originally, more linked to sister location, or if it's still linked to the rest of the lore. The final thing to talk about in this section is, insane mode. I'm gonna be honest, by the time I made it to night 6, I was pretty burnt out on this game, and I would have rather done anything but play insane mode, so yeah, I can't really talk about what it's like, but I can say the cutscene you get after beating the mode, assuming you get both the keys. You can open the FNAF 4 box and get a small cutscene of a man speaking to what seems to be a private investigator about a new lead, teasing Fredbear and friends left to rot. In an older version of the game though, it was instead something more vague, showing a panning shot and eventually revealing a cassette player labelled Afton. I personally prefer the new one though. The room design is very cool, and for some reason these specific stars you can see through the window look like a Freddy silhouette to me. Oh, this is why I'm a virgin. This game visually is super cool, and it somehow replicates that simplistic Scott Cawthon style almost perfectly, and it is amazing. All of the rooms feel so decorated and awesome, like an actual scare maze attraction. The map especially plays into this feeling much more realistic than the FNAF 3 map. But to be fair, Fazbear's Fright is more of a haunted house than a scare maze, so yeah. Fredbear's Fright even has designated entrance and exit rooms that actually feel as such, being the room Prototype starts in and the room to the right of your office respectively. And almost every mechanic in the building is explained as being part of the in-universe horror attraction. The doors and vents in your office presumably being part of the progression in the attraction, the light to your door presumably acting as part of the flashlight game that's being played to the left of your office, and the keypad being an animatronic moveset operator used to mess with the animatronics programming to spook the people going through. I do think the explanation for the office's sprinkler to be, in Phone Guy's wording, a little silly, as apparently the night guard is supposed to use it to fill a spray bottle to clean the animatronic joints before they leave the building, but why didn't they just say it's for in case a fire breaks out? Anyway, about the cameras, I really like how each section of the building is based on a different location in Freddy's history. For example, Camo 5 reminds me of the FNaF 1 establishment for some reason, alongside the office, for obvious reasons. While Cam 6 has a bunch of FNaF 2 theming. Cam 2A and 4A stick out to me in particular. 2A having the FNaF 3 Freddy and Bonnie stands, and it's implied to be the place where Scrap Fredbear starts, sticks out to me in particular. It kinda makes me wonder if this is foreshadowing for Night 5 or something. There's also Cam 4A, which reminds me of both the observatory and the final test room from Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot. It's probably just a coincidence, but it's definitely interesting. Audio-wise, where I think this game really shines when it comes to audio is its red herrings, as Scruffy called them in his video about FNaF 1 sound design. There's this one sound that really sticks out to me of what sounds like a kid whispering, which I genuinely have no clue on whether or not it's just ambience or actually involved in the game somewhere. This works perfectly in tandem of how audio cues are incredibly important to this game, and I'd say Garrett 2 pulled it off really well. About Phone Guy though, I think the voice actor could have done a couple more takes on certain lines. He feels a little too monotone and emotionless at certain points and doesn't really feel that immersive in comparison to Garrett's future titles. It's especially noticeable on Night 4 his "oh no" doesn't sound that afraid in the slightest, though he does drop some interesting lore points, like how the hand puppets are from an old diner in the middle of nowhere, presumably Fredbear's, and even references Fazbear's Fright burning down. Now, about character designs. Around 2/3 of the cast are Fredbear and Spring Bonnie variants, so I'll skip over those mofos. Though I will mention I like the detail of Fredbear having blood around his mouth as a reference to the Bite of 83. It's an extremely common detail in withered Fredbear designs these days, but like, who the hell cares? It's still neat. Starting with Scrap Malzicki, I absolutely love this Chuck E. Cheese knockoff. He almost perfectly replicates the Uncanny Valley aesthetic of the classic animatronics with the wide-eyed stare and lack of eyebrows, alongside the Foxy reminiscent, seemingly broken jaw. Besides that, I also really like the fancy look he has going on with the bowler hat and pocket watch. I'm very happy Nightmare Malzicki was introduced into the roster for Left to Rot. Then there's Prototype and Scrap Fredbear. They're just endoskeletons with masks. But the masks they wear still make them unique in their own way, even if their bodies are pretty much identical. I really like Prototype's mask design. If I had to guess, it was for a mascot costume variant of Malzicki, but like, no Springlock BS this time around. That's fun. And then Scrap Fredbear's mask is basically just UCN Fredbear before UCN existed. I like to think that Scrap Fredbear is possessed by FNaF 1 Phone Guy, by the way, based on the snout of the suit he's stuffed into, and the fact that Fredbear is implied to start in 4A, the same camera with the FNaF 1 Freddy and Bonnie stands. Finally, there's Fright. What the fuck? This thing is horrifying. The ripped and broken mask with a human nose underneath, presumably being from Phone Guy. The mixture of parts from all the other animatronics, the glowing eyes and the slightly broken jaw resembling a crooked smile at the right angle. I hate this thing so much, but in all of the best ways. Also, its name is literally Fright. Who wouldn't be afraid of this abomination when his name literally tells you to be afraid of it? Either Everything is a Dream by the FNaF 1 Phone Guy, aka the Lame Brute, or from what I can gather, 1 week prior to FNaF 1, the original Phone Guy was caught by the animatronics that had been hunting him down the whole week, being stuffed into a Scrap Fredbear suit in the backstage, unfortunately dying in the suit while trying to fend off the animatronics until 6 AM, possessing the endoskeleton in the process. Many years later, long after Freddy's had shut down, Fun Frights Inc. took notice of the abandoned FNaF 1 location for sale in a very convenient spot for a fairly cheap price. It was in pretty bad condition, so the company decided to renovate the building into a scare maze type horror attraction, using props and animatronics from every Freddy's location they could find, including the now burnt down Fazbear's Fright, to make this the most authentic experience they can. Unfortunately, the power malfunction ended up cutting out when they finished getting the basics of everything's done, so that means you have limited power in the office. Little do they know, the animatronics in there possessed, and have been for a long time, and after whatever humans are there in the building. 3 nights go by as the prototype animatronic devises a plan, destroying every character in the building including the protagonist's employer, modifying its body with all the parts it got from disassembling everything, becoming Fright. With the player character being the only object of intelligence left in the building for Fright to destroy, it hunts them down the whole night, eventually catching them right as it hits 6 AM and supposedly escaping Fredbear's Fright, the attraction never opening as all of its main attractions have been disassembled. As for the minigames, William stole and dismantled versions of the main Fazbear band, being Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Fredbear, making them into the Nightmare animatronics to conduct some kind of tests on subjects. Of course, this is just my interpretation of the lore presented in the game, especially with the whole scrap Fredbear is possessed by FNaF 1 phone guy thing, which to me is just the most logical conclusion to make. As for how this game links to Fredbear and friends left to rot in a bite of Freddy's... With all that said, this fan game is just brilliant. I love Scrap Malzicki, and the plotline with Fright is incredibly captivating. And how it all links to FNaF 1 with the phone guy is... it's also... I love it! I could be a little biased though of how this is the first fan game I was absolutely obsessed with as an innocent little creature. But potential nostalgia points aside... oh god damn it, another rodent infestation?